inclined to it, except I'm not sure quite what I'm talking about.
Okay. So you don't have, so you would just kind of be uncertain.
Yeah, neutral or slightly positive, inquisitive, I guess, more than anything else.
Okay. So a little bit of curious as to into more information then.
Right.
So basically the product that I've kind of thought of is sort of rolling off the idea of this other company called Zuvi, which has created a banana flour. They take green, so unripe bananas before they've kind of developed their sugar content, and they freeze dry them and then mill them into flour. And so the flour contains, more minerals and more vitamins than typical flour. It doesn't have any taste because, um, green bananas don't really have a lot of taste.
Right.
And it has a lot more fiber and potassium than normal flour. So I kind of was thinking, well, I might use banana flour in baking like cookies or
Yeah.
something like that. But what if I wanted to make um, homemade pasta or pizza dough? I might not be as inclined to use banana flour. So what if there was the same
Right.
thing but with vegetables? Um, so this kind of had that thought. Has the thought of freeze dried vegetable flour ever crossed your mind?
I can't say that it has, no.
Okay. When you consider flour substitutes, which substitutes do you usually think of? And I'm talking just like all-purpose white flour. What do you consider a flour substitute?
Well, you're probably talking to the wrong guy. I mean, I have no reaction because I don't know of any.
Okay. No, that's fine. Well, just like that I'm gluten free, so some of the things that
Right.
first come to my mind would be like coconut flour, or almond flour, oat flour, rice flour.
Sure. Rice flour makes sense. Yeah.
But
Probably heard that.
yeah, but definitely not vegetable flour at first.
Right.
So then my next question you probably don't have an answer to either. It's, have you done or do you do any research with flour substitutes before buying them? So I'm gonna guess that
Yeah. Pretty not. You know.
you probably don't go into Google and search healthy flour
No,
substitutes.
I don't, but I know Susan has done a fair amount of checking for all kinds of alternative, ingredients, and I'm sure she probably knows a bit about the flour stuff. I just don't know myself.
Do you know? Okay. Do you know why she does the research?
Just primarily to find healthier options than what we're used to.
Okay. Uh, do you know if she purchases any of these flour substitutes?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure we don't have any.
Okay.
Other than regular flour. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, she might have bought some for a special dish or something, but we don't keep it on hand.
Okay. Where do you guys primarily shop? Do your grocery shopping?
A combination of Publix and Trader Joe's, but mostly Publix.
Okay. Do you or Susan do any grocery shopping online?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know how much dough making you guys do, but anyway, could you potentially see yourself using vegetable flour in place of other flour in your cooking? So, for example, one thing that I do often is to try to reduce the calories in normal pizza instead of using either like a pre-made dough or making my own dough using white flour. I will grind up cauliflower and dry it out and use it as flour. Just add a couple eggs, and then use that. And to me, I think it tastes really good. But could you see yourself doing something like that, like this?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. All right. Well, those are the only questions I have. Just to give you a better idea of what my idea is, it would take, I would take any feasible vegetable and do the same thing. I would freeze dry it like the bananas, and then grind it up into a flour that could be used basically completely in substitute for normal flour. I mean, a lot of people I think have kind of experimented, especially with cauliflower. I think that's the easiest one because it's a fairly dry vegetable.
Right.
But I'm proposing, using broccoli or using red peppers, even using like dried garbanzo beans or dried edamame, just all these different kinds of vegetables. So
yeah, we have cauliflower mashed potatoes every once in a while. It's something that was Susan found in one of the books, and we do it once in a while.
Oh, yeah, we have that at training table every once in a while. We'll have cauliflower mashed potatoes, and I mean, it's obviously not the same. It's not real creamy or, buttery like normal mashed potatoes. But I mean, for me, it makes a good substitute. So.
All right. Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah.
Worth a try. Just a matter of what you're getting used to, If you tried it, I think you probably want to keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would just kind of be at first trying it because a lot of people are hesitant towards, using vegetables in place of other more desirable foods, I guess.
Recently, you probably would be interested. Somebody has been working for years, apparently, on some sort of a substitute for meat, for beef.
Oh, really?
And I forgot what all the details were, but the bottom line was the taste that we like from beef is the blood. And so there's some sort of there's a name for it, like hemoglobin or something. It's a hemo something or other. And it's actually found in some other things. This guy's hamburger substitute essentially has, they collect some of that stuff from, say, lettuce or wherever it is, and they include it in the patty. And apparently it really has a great flavor. It's pretty darn expensive at this point, $20 hamburger. But
I'm sure.
Apparently that has some potential for a real substitute, with the taste part of it as well.
Now, what about, so I'm guessing it has a lot less fat in it then, which is what people are concerned about.
Yeah. All kinds of advantages too.
I'm interested.
I don't know whether you heard that or not. I don't know what the name of the thing is, but it's usual with an NPR discussion or something I heard.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I wonder if it has the same protein content because, one burger has 30 grams of protein or whatever it has.
Yeah.
But, if it was...
Yeah, I don't know about that part of it. The guy seemed to be focused a lot on the taste. His point was... Right. If people didn't think it tasted right, they were just never going to get it off the ground. So.
That's interesting that it's the blood that's what we like.
Blood or something, whatever it is.
Huh, that's really interesting. All right, well, thank you so much for answering my questions as well as you could. I really appreciate you taking the time as well.
Okay, well, it's my pleasure, and we'll be in touch here. I gotta get off and get on this other thing. I missed the previous one of these.
Oh.
And I looked up, and this was about a week ago, and I hope they don't build on one on the other. But,
gotcha.
I looked up, and it was time it was supposed to be finished instead of start.
All right, well, I will let you go then. Say hello to Susan for me and have a wonderful trip.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's try this again. What are the top 3 concerns or aspects in your life?
That's so broad. I guess the health and happiness of friends and family, probably. guess, political stability for the country, and the institution of sustainable practices that preserve the global environment.
Wow, that was a great answer. Hold on. Okay. Here's a more specific question. What are a few of your favorite foods, regardless of how healthy or unhealthy they are?
Avocados. Good chocolate. And coffee, probably.
Okay. What do you consider?
I'm quite fond of ratatouille too.
Okay, let's see if I can spell that. All right, what do you consider the healthiest foods or the healthiest food group?
Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, probably.
Whole grains. How often do you eat these foods?
Pretty much daily.
Daily?
I'm sorry?
Did you say daily?
I said yes.
Okay. Please briefly describe your current diet or goal diet plan. How do you, what do you consider your healthy diet plan?
It is it's pretty much like what's called the DASH diet, which is mostly fruit, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and low salt. It's sort of similar to a Mediterranean diet.
Okay. What about, what kind of carbohydrate foods do you like?
Well, just about everything I eat has carbohydrate in it. So grains have it, fruit, vegetables, and just about everything I eat has carbohydrate in it.
But I mean, like, your typical carb foods, like pizza, pasta, bread, those kind of foods.
I guess whole grain bread would be the thing that would be predominantly carb that I eat.
Is that your favorite type of carb, though?
Oh.
If you were just craving some type of carb food, for me it would probably be macaroni and cheese or pizza. But maybe you don't crave that as much.
I don't crave carbs so much. So I guess I would say, I guess a good piece of whole grain bread. I don't know.
Okay. In what form do you most often eat vegetables?
Whole, usually. Usually raw, but sometimes cooked.
Okay. And when you say cooked, is that like steamed?
Boiled, baked, or microwaved. I don't have a steamer.
Okay. How often do you cook with flour? Just all-purpose flour?
Rarely.
Can you give me an approximation as to how many times in a month, how many times in a year?
Once every 3 months, maybe.
Okay. And what do you primarily use it to cook for?
I mean, I do it so rarely, honestly. The thing I use flour most for is if I buy the whole grain pizza crust, I put it on the breadboard to knead the dough.
Okay. How often do you eat out?
Maybe once a week.
Okay. So, let's see. What is your initial reaction to, or the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the words vegetable flour?
It sounds very interesting.
Okay. Has the thought of free...
Like it might be a good, healthy alternative.
Okay. Has the thought of freeze-dried vegetable flour ever crossed your mind?
Freeze-dried vegetable what?
Freeze-dried vegetable flour. Has it ever crossed your mind? Have you ever even...
Only within the last couple of days.
From me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, when you consider flour substitutes, which substitutes do you typically think of?
Well, like almond flour, probably.
Okay.
Rice flour, I guess, is another one.
Okay. Have you ever done any research as to flour substitutes?
No, not really.
Okay. Do you purchase any flour substitutes?
Only when you're in town.
Okay. Where do you purchase them when I come to town?
Costco, I think, has an almond flour. I think that's the only place I've ever bought it.
Okay. Do you know what brand it is?
I could go look.
No, that's okay.
I don't know offhand.
Okay. Could you see yourself using vegetable flour in place of other flour in your cooking? For example, instead of traditional white flour pizza dough, using cauliflower flour to make pizza dough crust.
Yeah, I might be more inclined to make things like that if there was a vegetable flour that I could use.
Rather than having to buy the
flour.
Wait, say that one more time, sorry.
I might be more inclined to make those carb kind of foods if I had a vegetable flour to make it out of that might be more healthy than just using refined wheat flour.
Okay.
Because, especially if it, meant an extra serving of vegetables and fiber and everything that goes with it.
Right. Also, one more thing would also, I think, for you, even for me, it'd be a lot more convenient if a cauliflower flour existed than having to buy the whole cauliflower head, grinding it up, drying it out for a day plus, and then being able to use it. It'd be a lot more convenient if it was already pre-packaged in the flour form. So there's already a company that I think I spoke to you about it a little bit earlier that does this with bananas. And per package, there's 12. They use 12 bananas per package, and the package has 13. No, the package has, I think it's like 10-ish servings. And with one package, you can make 5 batches of cookies with a whole package. So that's one batch of cookies is 60 cookies. So with one package, you can make 300 cookies, but you're also paying $15 just for that pack of flour. I would assume, I haven't really run the numbers, but I would assume that another package of dried vegetables, dried vegetable flour would run pretty similar in price. What do you think you would be willing to spend $15 on one package of, for example, cauliflower flour if you were able to make, let's say, 4 pizzas from it?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that.
Okay, so let's just say a package of cauliflower flour, the size that we would produce it in, costs $15.
Okay.
Would you be willing to purchase that if it only made 3-ish pizzas?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Because really you would just need whatever amount of flour and then an egg and salt and probably a little oil and water. So you think that would be worth it to you?
Well, if it would make a healthy pizza that I actually would feel okay about eating, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you for answering my questions.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I am here with my teammate Nora. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions and just answer them however you like. What are the top concerns or aspects in your life?
I would say one big concern in my life is probably that I get a good job in the future. So right now I'm like trying to get a good grades at school and then get some work experience.
Okay. What are a few of your favorite foods, regardless of how healthy or unhealthy they are?
My favorite food are fruits. I would say all of them, all fruits. And I really like vegetables as well.
Okay, good.
So I would say it's like pretty healthy food that I like.
Okay. Do you ever have any cravings for...
Oh, I have one craving. It's kind of weird, but I love nuts. All kind of nuts, so yeah.
Alright. What do you consider the healthiest foods or the healthiest food group?
I would say vegetables.
Okay. I would say that too.
Yeah.
How often do you eat vegetables?
Every day.
Every day. For every meal?
Yeah, almost every meal I try to have some sort of vegetables.
Okay. So do you ever have cravings for high carbohydrate foods like pizza, pasta, bread, those different types of foods? What, Americans consider the like carbo load foods and like our comfort foods.
Yeah. I would say that sometimes, not very often, but sometimes when I train a lot and I haven't maybe eaten that much on that day, then maybe in the evening I'm like craving something kind of like heavier food that like fills me up.
Can you give me an example?
Yes. It's probably not gonna be pizza or pasta.
Okay.
But it might be maybe like quinoa or oatmeal. Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
I would say oatmeal. That's like when I'm craving carbs, it's gonna be oatmeal.
Gotcha. So please briefly describe to me your current diet or your goal diet plan.
Yes. So I have a celiac disease, so I need to eat gluten-free and need to be like really careful with that one. So my diet is really simple, and I would say that it's kind of like clean, so no like processed food. It's mostly some kind of protein, and the protein is gonna be fish or chicken, and then with that I will eat vegetables. in the mornings, I always eat oatmeal, so that's like kind of where I get most of my carbs.
Okay.
So yeah, but pretty simple.
In what form, excuse me, in what form do you most often eat vegetables? Like raw, cooked, baked, boiled?
Yeah. It's either cooked in the oven,
Okay.
so kind of like roasted vegetables, or then it's gonna be raw.
Now, how often do you cook with flour? And when I say flour, I mean all-purpose flour.
Yeah. Not often.
Okay.
So I have to be honest, I'm probably cooking with flour once a month.
Okay. But you can't eat when you cook with that flour, right? I'm talking about normal flour.
Normal flour. Okay, then I would say I try to avoid that because when I cook with flour, it's like there is always this risk that I get some kind of that it like goes into my mouth or something. So I really try to avoid that.
Okay.
But I would say maybe once a month. Once a year or something. But I try to avoid that. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I figured. How often do you eat out? Like go to a restaurant to eat?
Maybe twice a month.
Okay. What is your initial reaction or the first thing that comes to your head when I tell you the words vegetable flour? First thing that comes to mind.
First thing maybe would be like corn flour in some sort of
way.
Yeah, I don't. That's like new word for me.
New word. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Has the thought of freeze-dried vegetable flour ever crossed your mind? So when you completely dry vegetables and then mill them, so grind them up, and then you have like a flour substance. Has it ever crossed? Have you ever thought about it?
No, actually, no. I feel like that would be like a really good idea.
Okay. So when you consider flour substitutes, so substitutes for all-purpose flour that has gluten in it, which substitutes do you typically think of?
I would think of almond or coconut flour.
Okay.
And then I use a lot of eggs to kind of like make the consistent right. Okay. So sometimes I don't even use like flours at all.
Okay, so eggs kind of do their job in terms of like holding things together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. Have you done or do you do any research with flour substitutes? Seeing which ones might be better than others or whatever?
Yeah, I think I did more when I first heard that I have, or when I first like got the celiac diagnosis. Right now, I don't really use any flours on my diet, so now it's more like I'm just trying to avoid them.
When did you get celiac?
I would say 6 years ago then.
Okay. So you really just try to stay away from any flour at all now?
Much. Yeah.
Just find a substitute for that. Okay, that's great. So basically, I've identified a need that for people with celiac, people that want to reduce their carbohydrate intake or look for substitute flours that don't have so many calories. What if you could freeze dry vegetables, grind them, and then you'd have a vegetable flour that's very low carbohydrates. It has good nutrients and vitamins in it, but it would work the same as flour. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of cauliflower crust pizza, so it'd be similar to that. So you grind the cauliflower, let it dry, really make it into a fine consistency, and then package it. And so it's easy for users, if they're going to make pizza dough, they can just choose the cauliflower flour instead of regular flour. Could you see yourself doing that? If there was a product on the market for like green bean flour, broccoli flour, cauliflower flour, would do you think as a consumer you might be drawn to that, or to even purchase that to use it if you were going to make one of these types of foods?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good idea, and I think there is room for that in current market. So I think that's really a good idea.
Okay. And being celiac, up to date on probably a lot of gluten-free foods that are on the market. Is there anything that you know of that's similar to this?
I have to say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was really helpful. Thank you for answering my questions.
Great.